Did somebody say gun episode? Oh, not that one. Nope. Nah. There we go. 'Cause I'm locked and loaded.
Box bites.
You know, Amazing Digital Circus is probably the only show I can think of that manages to get more engaging as it gets less creative. I mean, at first we had Mad Max Sugary Road and a Haunted Mansion monster murder mystery. What's next? My day job, the place I go on the weekends to forget it all, and what I wish I could do to my boss. Yet despite most of the adventures in this show getting less and less fantastical, with a few exceptions, I end up being more and more on the edge of my seat each time Caine consecutively pulls back the curtain. Evidence of eventual collapse has been piling up like dirty sheets in a hotel laundry room, so the big question is, when is it finally gonna happen? When is Caine gonna lose his last marble and either abstract or it up? When is this digital amalgamation being held together by duct tape and Jesus gonna take its last bow? What's the incident that'll cause the last popsicle stick strength support to eventually snap and send the entire game tumbling into virtual oblivion? Well, once I saw that Caine's next adventure was just give the MCs guns and have them shoot each other, I had a feeling we were nearing the beginning of the end. But how bonkers do things actually get in these over 33 minutes? Well, let's check out episode 6 and find out. With the favorite character awards just over the horizon. Yep, it was a whole thing online. Caine went into a deep depression after realizing he'll never be loved. It was great. Our carnival compadres, especially Zooble, are fearing the details of Caine's recently announced in-house adventure. The initial plan was to have a digital circus Olympics of sorts, but after seeing the internal dysfunction between some of his meowing milkmaids, Caine decides that a better course of action would be to do some trust exercises involving private rooms and loaded firearms. Which immediately goes wrong as soon as Jax is chosen to use the gun first. So Caine decides to just say screw it and gives them a bunch of guns so they can all shoot each other as they wish. And what follows is a blood-pumping, heart-stopping, action-packed, ammo-stacked, completely cracked. Yeah, okay, I can't do this anymore. While the gunplay and action are intense, do not let that trailer fool you. This episode, above all else, is a multi-layered character drama that focuses on the dynamics between unorthodox pairings, deeply raw and intense humanity leading to the most real-feeling scenes in any indie cartoon, morals on the topics of emotional distancing and self-acceptance that feel organic and not forced, and meta-narrative commentary that honestly makes you question the intent of the writers at times. I don't feel like I could do this thing complete justice with only an initial review, but considering the state this thing put me in once I was done watching, I just need to talk about it, even if my feelings are a little muddled. I guess I just gotta do what everyone in this episode did and pull the trigger. So, let's take a deep breath and look at the characters team by team. Yeah, like hell we're doing them first. Let's start with Team Unmasked. So Zooble and Gangle have already been established as friends for most of the show, ever since Fast Food Masquerade. Not only praising and promoting the passions of one another, but also being able to bond on a unique level untouched by the other four. Zooble directly points out that they and Gangle are the only two circus members that were given avatar gimmicks, Gangle with her mask and Zooble with their parts. And as I've mentioned in reviews aplenty, these are obviously meant to have very direct real-world parallels. Gangle's mask is symbolic of needing to feign normality while hiding the depression and neurodivergent tendencies that she's been convinced to believe are bad, and Zooble's parts are meant to symbolize them swapping different professions, interests, and personality assets to try and find something that fits, or feels good, or makes sense. In short, Gangle is trapped, and Zooble is lost. And you might think, oh, throughout the adventures, they're gonna have big realizations and arcs that'll make them realize something about themselves. Nope. If anything, Caine's adventures seem to have just made them worse. At the end of episode 4, Gangle finally sheds the fake plastic mask and lets the real her loose upon the world, only to get hit by a truck and just return to gray, dull reality. You could say this symbolizes that if she ever thinks about taking off her metaphorical mask, terrible things could happen to her. She could be ridiculed, bullied, thrust back into normality without acknowledgement, or maybe literally be killed. You never know. It's like she was just about to have a big character moment, only for the car to shift in reverse at the last second and crush her spirits. Zooble, meanwhile, had a very similar thing happen during Mildenhall Manor. During a therapy session with Caine, they reveal a very personal truth about themselves, about how nothing they do or try makes them feel any sense of self-satisfaction, how they just don't know how to love themselves yet. And all Caine tells them to do is just keep swapping undesirable parts for new ones, completely ignoring the deeper issues and just telling them to continue on a path that clearly isn't working, both in the game and in real life. Caine is actively making their paths towards self-discovery more difficult, and trust me, we will get to that later. But in the few moments where Caine isn't involved, where they're allowed to just talk and relax and lay all their cards on the table, they're able to confide in each other and actually improve as friends and people. It could be as simple as praising their art and inviting them to join a group, or as complex as a profound speech about self-acceptance, which Zooble gives in this episode. Gangle asks how one is meant to love oneself when there's something that makes them worse as a person, and Zooble replies, because it's real. It's a part of you whether you like it or not, and it's better to accept it as such rather than to put all your energy into pretending it doesn't exist. And the sooner you accept yourself, the sooner you can show it to the world and even find beauty in what it can bring you. Your flaws can bring you friends who sympathize with you and can help you get through certain rough patches that they've powered through before. They can bring you experience that allows you to be the teacher for those that need someone to relate to. And the fact that Gangle is an artist is extra fitting, since flaws can also help you create great art that can inspire generations and show people from all around, even ones you don't know personally, that they're not alone and there are others who know how they feel. This conversation would already be a great use of the duo on its own, but it's their last major appearances that really help them go out with a bang. Gangle finally gets hold of a Tommy gun, which was established earlier in the episode, and goes absolutely hog wild, shooting at the enemy team with reckless abandon. She does eventually get out-sniped by Pomni, but before she dies, we see the comedy mask shatter to reveal her tragedy mask underneath with a happy, boisterous smile that's even bigger than the comedy one. I like to think this represents her finally starting to accept herself. She was initially afraid of the comedy mask getting broken, thinking she'll need it later to make herself feel better, but now she wears it fully knowing it'll likely get shattered, but not caring because whether or not she loses the mask, she's fully content with life either way. If anything, she's now more happy with the real her than the fake her, and I think that's awesome. And Zooble has by far the most awesome moment in the whole episode, where they snap on multiple Zooble parts and go absolutely ham on team bad guys with 4 freaking guns at once. Heck, they probably would have won if Pomni didn't have aimbot hacks on. This shows that Zooble as well is getting closer to their own self-acceptance, no longer seeing any parts of them as undesirable and embracing every piece of themselves, physically and metaphorically. We even get to see a little playfulness from them where they smile in defeat and flip team bad guys off with all 4 of their fingers before saying a pun and peacing out. It's the first time they've actually been happy during an adventure and happy about themselves. And I really hope this isn't an isolated incident and they're more willing to open up and just have fun with others. They may not have ultimately won the shootout, but their character growth was impeccable and monumental. Oh, also Gangle helps Ragatha and Kinger realize they're furries. That's always fun. Speaking of which, I guess they're next. Kinger and Ragatha are eliminated almost immediately from the tournament, so they don't get to do much shooting and looting aside from a really cool gunfight in a dark room, which Kinger totally should have won, by the way, since he's been a crack shot in the dark before, but busting his head open was worth it since it leads to one of the most wholesome conversations in the whole episode. I've always been hoping for a Kinger and Ragatha solo scene since Candy Carrier Chaos, well, with Kinger dropping the fact that the two have history together as he was around when she first came into the circus and was getting used to things. By the way, I love how him having a bucket on his head is a reference to how he can only think clearly in the dark. And they continue that concept here as the loser corner is dark as well, and he's able to impart some of his grandfatherly wisdom on the emotionally confused ragdoll. As I discussed in my Untitled review, Ragatha tries way too hard to get on people's good side by overpraising and over-pampering, to the point where people either see her as fake, overbearing, or insincere. I'll admit I chose my words poorly when I called her toxically positive. In reality, she's more overly doting. She doesn't want people to feel as lonely and unloved as she did in her old life, so she showers others with affection and validation while also secretly craving validation herself. She clearly hates herself, even if she didn't properly answer Kinger's question, and she wants to know from others that she's doing things right. In the end, she fails to realize that relationships go both ways. It's a two-sided connection with both sides pulling their own weight, and if you lean too far into the relationship, the scales are going to tip and the other person is going to feel uncomfortable. You don't need to be a constant blazing beam of sunlight brightening up every inch of their sky, but it is important for them to know that you will be there if they need you. Give them their space, but not so far that they can't see you over the horizon. Perfectly balanced, as all friends should be. Personally, I like to think that Ragatha was one of the first people to enter the circus alongside Kinger, and at first she was a lot less abrasive in her friendship tactics, since Kinger mentioned that it was her that helped him turn his self-hating mindset around and become a bit more happy with himself. At this point in her life, she was able to help someone become a happier person, and by the end, she got both positive results and validation of her actions. But as the circus got more and more crowded with people that acted distant or depressed or jerkish, and she wasn't able to help them feel better, she doubled down on her friend-making strategies out of desperation, which just led to everyone distancing themselves from her due to discomfort. She straight up mentions failing Jax, which implied that she tried to help Jax to no avail. So I assume that the longer she stayed in the circus, the worse and more frustrated she got. Like, she was already able to help a friend once, why isn't she able to do it again? Does she need to try harder? Is there something wrong with her? Does she hate them or herself? Are they the problem or is she the problem? In the end, the solution wasn't to stop being nice or change who she was, but to be one half of a beautiful whole instead of trying to support the whole herself. We sadly don't get to see her next convo with Pomni as the episode ends before they can talk, but I like to think that Kinger's lessons about balanced relationships have stuck with her, and she'll form a stronger connection with Pomni in the coming episodes. Kinger doesn't really go through much of an arc, as he seems like the circus member who has it the most together, ironically, but like I mentioned before, we do see that he once had a severe case of self-hatred over things he's done in the past, things he thought he was responsible for, saying he once lost everything. I've gone into extensive detail about my thoughts on Kinger's backstory in many Digital Circus theories, and my idea of him being the original creator of the game are still holding decent water. I mean, the guy was able to make a health-restoring butterfly out of nowhere. He pulled a Caine and created his own in-game asset with nothing but free will and imagination, as if he had mod privileges or something. You connect the dots. But regardless of what his actual past ends up being, the fact that he was able to overcome his self-hatred with the simple act of a person being kind to him shows the impact that a relationship founded on kindness can have on a person. Kinger went from despising who he was to sharing the idea of cherishing memories and loved ones, all because he found someone who cared about him. It seems like it was all he needed: a smiling face, a shoulder to cry on, and a listening ear. And because Ragatha hadn't overwhelmed herself yet or gotten too aggressive with her kindness, they were able to just connect once all the tears had dried. She was there when he needed her, but still gave him space, since they were probably all they had when the circus first started. Once again, the solution to long-lasting friendships is not to stop being nice, but to start being balanced. Take care of friends, but also take care of yourself too. If you stretch yourself too thin and something happens to you, then your friends will be left with no one, and you definitely wouldn't want that. It's conversations like this which further cement Kinger as my favorite character, and with his yet to be focused on mod powers, I feel like he might be the key to the circus dwellers finally escaping their fate. Heck, maybe he'll have a big mod-on-mod final battle with Caine at the end of the series. That'd be pretty epic. And finally, after much intentional delay, we have Jax and Pomni on Team Bad Guys. I went on summer vacation for a week, and even I had less to unpack than these two. So despite Jax trying to lock up his vulnerabilities in a mental fortress, I think it's safe to say we're all able to read him like a book. He is clearly pushing people away and actively avoiding relationships under the fear of being hurt and left alone like he's been in the past. Again, in my Untitled review, I predicted that his life IRL was plagued by tragedy or abuse or some kind of unfortunate events which made it difficult to form connections with others. Maybe loved ones dying or leaving or something along those lines. When he entered the circus, he felt a little more secure about opening up again, since it's impossible to die in this game, and anyone who enters the digital realm is unable to leave, meaning that the relationships he forms there could technically last forever. But then he witnesses his circus friends abstracting and realizes that even here, his relationships are doomed to failure. And that's what makes him into the cold, distant jerk we know today. But it turns out things are way worse than I initially thought. Jax goes into a lot of meta talk involving characters and their archetypes and such, giving his 10 mates titles like the crazy one and the shy one, and calling himself the funny one. He wants so bad to convince himself that nothing matters anymore that he literally degrades these very real human beings into simple cartoon characters to be messed with, just so he doesn't feel a need to connect to them and feel any pain when terrible things inevitably happen to them. If what I predicted about him is true, I like to think that one day after losing all his loved ones in and out of the circus, he thought to himself, "So that's it, huh? That's all I'm ever going to be? Just the butt of this cruel, sick joke you call life? You think it's funny to see me suffer? To see me cry? To see me lose everything? No matter where I go? I thought I could find someone to love, someone to hold, someone to cry on. Well, I guess the joke's on me, huh?" Well, not anymore. This time, I'm gonna be the one delivering the punchlines. I'm gonna be the funny guy. And from that moment on, he treats this whole situation like the sick, twisted game it's always been. Never caring, never getting close, keeping himself from feeling pain, which ironically just causes him more pain. What a sad, sad, miserable existence that must be. It's kinda ironic that this is easily the most human episode of ADC so far, and yet Jax has been doing everything in his power to remove all the humanity he can from the situation he's in, despite clearly having unhealed pain deep down that's only getting worse by the day. Even those few moments in Fast Food and Untitled and right here, what we see as momentary cracks in his comical armor are just things he'll think about and regret later. And he doesn't just want the characters to know that he'll never change, but he wants the audience to know it too. Remember that Jax has the power to break the fourth wall, and many of his statements that he makes throughout his and Pomni's big argument often involve him looking right at the camera. He is directly telling us that he is never going to change. He's never going to be anything other than the jerk archetype, and we should stop digging deeper and stop caring about him because it's ultimately going to lead to nothing. Anytime it seems like we're getting close to a breakthrough for his character, it's supposedly just been him leading us on because he thinks it's funny. We are his playthings, and he derives joy from seeing us try to cling to any inch of humanity he accidentally lets slip. I've seen emotionally distant characters before, but I don't think I've ever seen one look me square in the eyes and say, "Knock it off, you're wasting your time." I don't know if that was intentional or not, but when I realized it, it kind of gave me a chill down my spine. And poor little Pomni being caught in the middle of all this emotional insanity. She initially accepts Jax's invitation to not take things seriously in an attempt to just have fun and bond with him, only to be forcefully pushed out of a hug and talked down to for even considering getting close to Jax. All of her efforts get tossed in the trash, and even when she manages to get some humanity out of Jax by yelling and fighting and beating him up, his face just factory resets to that eerie big-eyed smile, and it's just... ugh. I honestly don't know if there's any coming back from this. I don't know if Pomni's ever going to try to open up to Jax again. And if that's the case, I think this poor guy might have just severed his last lifeline, and his abstraction panic attacks might lead to the real thing sooner than we think. At least he has a tail now! But the saddest part of all is that all this stuff I talked about, all this growth and development and meta context and disappearing guy cameos might not even be around for much longer, because Caine has officially lost it. Every single Caine appearance from the pilot till now has made one thing crystal clear. Caine's adventures, the one thing he's been programmed to believe he's good at, have been at best ignored and at worst criticized and detested by the circus crew. They never want to play by his rules. They prefer the suggestions they created over his. Characters like Zooble prefer to opt out whenever able, and even when he puts together a big show to determine who is the most loved character in the game, he doesn't receive a single vote. Now, I obviously don't blame Caine for what he's doing. He's not evil, he's just confused and misled. He clearly wants to make the circus dwellers happy, but due to his incomplete and glitchy programming, he doesn't understand humanity and therefore is unable to fulfill his assigned purpose of creating worthwhile experiences for them. The circus members were only able to grow when they were left to their own devices and allowed to be themselves. And like I said before, Caine's influence and adventures actually hinder personal growth rather than assist it, as shown with Gangle and Zooble. I think it's finally dawned on him that everything he's been doing so far has been wrong. Nobody likes him. Nobody wants to play his games. He's not good at adventures. He's not good at anything. So, what's the point of anything anymore? Considering he's not even trying to hide the fact that he can indeed control human minds as he literally beams an entire tutorial into Jax in this episode, I predict that one of two things will happen. Either he'll rewrite the minds of the circus mates to make it so they like his adventures, or he'll just corrupt and abstract into an amalgamation of glitchiness that will tear the entire circus to pieces. We've only got 3 episodes left before the circus closes for good, meaning that it's only a matter of time before everything collapses. Man, I haven't even gotten into the finer details like the masterful music, the excellent use of lighting, the wonderful staging of each scene, that realistic panic attack, the silent no-holds-bar fist fight at the end, the mountain peak voice acting, the great callbacks. But honestly, after watching this episode, I think I need a break. They All Get Guns is just an emotional roller coaster with spotlight for every character, raw, unhinged writing, and phenomenal payoffs for so many things established in the series. This might be a bit of a difficult watch for some people. Heck, I've even heard talks that it was almost censored at one point, but for those that want to see ADC's cast at their absolute peaks, I highly recommend giving this episode a chance.
Oh, come on!
Yeah, I'll make the obvious puns later. I'm just so drained at this point. Well, I'm gonna go curl up in the corner till I emotionally recover, but until then, what do you guys think? Do you see this episode as a certified bullseye or a complete misfire? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and I hope to see you all real soon.